It's nearly 9 o'clock. Today is Monday, April 2nd, 2007, and I sure hope this is Colorado Springs, because that's where I'm supposed to be. First of all, I'd like to ask you to either turn your pagers or cell phones either to off or to vibrate. Fellow callers, Mr. Chairman, partners, members of the Executive Committee, members of the Board of Governors, and guests. Welcome to the 34th CALLERLAB Convention. We are very pleased that you are here. Before we start, I'd like to introduce some of the folks who helped to make all of this happen. They work all year long and put in a lot of effort to get us to where we are today. If there are things that are missing from your convention package or your this or your that, please realize that unfortunately or fortunately, the home office has to employ humans. And we are very busy. If you're ever in the central east coast of Florida, make sure you do stop in and see the office and see what we actually do and the room, the space that we have, and do take a look at it. We're proud of it, and if you call us ahead of time, we'll clean it up pretty good. First of all, from the home office, Gail Swindle. As you know, she does a whole bunch, and you'll see her running around the hotel with her telephone, making things happen. Back in the back of the hall, Gail's husband, John Swindle. John is an extremely talented person and fairly good caller. And he does everything else. You've already met, I'm sure, a couple of volunteers that we have who help us at the convention as well. And Linda comes in and helps us with our books periodically, and we appreciate all the help that she gives us. But back in the back of the hall, Bill and Linda Ives. And your Assistant Executive Director and his lovely wife, Dana and Donna Schirmer. Dana must be working somewhere. Dana's right here. They do this to me all the time. And of course, the one person in my life who lets me have all the fun that I do and helps me so much to get everything done that I have to do, my wife, Dell. It's now my whatever it is. It's now my pleasure and my privilege to present the CALLERLAB Chairman of the Board, Tim Marinner.
Great. Super. Somehow or another, this gets into a game of Marco Polo. It's like Marco Polo, Marco. But between that door and this stage, I've lost my wife somewhere, and I know she. Marco Polo. Donna, let's give a nice hand to Donna in the back. Thank you. We're very pleased to have representatives from several square dancing national and international organizations with us today in this convention. Would you please stand and be recognized as I call your names? Please hold your applause until everybody's been introduced. Each year we invite representatives from various organizations to join us for this convention, and we're honored that many of them have accepted this invitation here to be with us in Colorado Springs. We're pleased to have representatives from several square dance national and that sounds like the same thing I just said. I would like to introduce them at this time. Would you please stand and remain standing to be recognized as I call your names? And would everybody hold your applause till I've introduced everybody, which was in the line before that? Okay, very good. All right. Reinforcing these ideas. Representing CALLERLAB, we have Gil and Judy Martin. Would you please stand, the chairman? Hold your applause. See, we needed to reinforce it 3 times then. Also with us from CALLERLAB, Al and Linda Shaw, the executive administrator. Representing the National Executive Committee, NEC, Gene and Connie Triplett, the 47th National Square Dance Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. Also with us from the NEC is Lee and Barbie Ashwell from the 54th National Convention in Portland, Oregon. They're not with us. Harry and Pat Nelson, the 52nd from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Representing USDA, the Cy and Marilyn Kittle, the president. Also with us from USDA, Lyle and Jean Beck, past presidents. Representing the 56th National Square Dance Convention in Charlotte, Wayne and Janice Bowman, General Chairman. Representing the 57th National Convention in Wichita, David and Sherry Hubbard, General Chairman. Representing the 59th National Square Dance Convention in Louisville, Ron and Cindy Shane, the General Chairman. Representing the Bid Committee for Detroit, the 60th National Square Dance Convention, Louis and Nancy Freelander. Representing the American Square Dance Magazine, Bill and Joanne Boyd. Let's give them a nice round of applause. We sure appreciate your attending. You may be seated. Thank you. Each year we have several CALLERLAB members who represent other organizations, and we're pleased to have these members that volunteer and provide their representation for their organization. And we'd like to recognize them here today. We're going to also recognize them tonight during the banquet. All right. If you're attending your first CALLERLAB convention, please stand. Great. If you're attending your first CALLERLAB convention, please stand and remain standing. So really serious. Please stand. Please stand. Okay, because we hadn't said sit down yet. They don't take direction. They're callers. Oh, that's it. That's it. There are 16 registered, so you don't have to count them. 16. Please identify yourselves when I call your name. And please hold your applause until we get everybody's name recognized. Steve Cooper, Pat Coaster, Louis and Nancy Freelander, Don Furnish, Dan Hoper, Cy and Marilyn Kittle, yeah, they were taking I see that. Okay. Excuse the pronunciation, but we're going to get this right. Ingeborg Kodeber and Luker and Bernard Kodeber. Is that close? Kober. Very good. Okay, thank you. Kober-Luken. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Yoshiyuki Kuruki. Yoshi-san, good to have you. Okay, Bruce Lothar. Thank you, Bruce. Chuck and Jackie Moore. Krista Moreland. Christina. Thank you. Christina Moreland. Harry and Pat Nelson. Oh, glad to have you recognized again, though. Dennis O'Neill. Good to see you, Dennis. Ron and Cindy Shane. Rich Stewart. And Irvin Wyatt. Did we recognize everybody? Left someone out. Hunter Culler. We'll add you to that list. 17 registered. Let's give a nice hand. Thank you very much. We certainly hope that you enjoy your convention here. Again, if you have any questions or anything, just feel free to ask any of the board members or any of the EC, and we'll be glad to help you in any way. Or the home office staff, for that matter, too. If you've attended at least 5 CALLERLAB conventions, you know the drill. Will you please stand? Please remain standing until the number exceeds your years of previous attendance. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, I guess I got to sit down. 25, 26, I'm assuming these go in order. 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Ladies and gentlemen, those remaining standing have attended every CALLERLAB convention since 1974. We didn't say sit down yet. Kind of a mother may I thing. Feels so much control in here. You're right, Tim. John Jones, John Kaltenthaler, Melton Luttrell, Jim Mayo, Francis Zeller. Let's give them a nice hand, please. Folks, there is one more person who has attended every CALLERLAB convention since 1974. Please join me in thanking her, Julia Zeller. Thank you. On this, the 34th anniversary of CALLERLAB, we're also very pleased to have 7 members who are with us who have served as chairman of the board. Please hold your applause until I've read all the names. Mr. Jim Mayo from 75 to 77 and also 2001, 2002. John Jones from 79 to 81. Mike Seastrom, 92 to 94. Jerry Junk from 96 to 98. Larry Cole from 99 to 2001. Mike Jacobs, 2002, 2003. Tim Crawford, 2004, 2005. Let's give them a nice round of applause. We appreciate their leadership. Finally, of the 117 callers who attended the 1974 convention 33 years ago, 10 are with us today. And would you please stand to be recognized as I call your names? And please hold your applause again until we get everybody recognized. Calvin Campbell, Marshall Flippo. Okay, he's resting. John Jones, John Kaltenthaler, Frank Lane, Melton Luttrell, Martin Mallard, Jim Mayo, Norm Wilcox, Francis Zeller. Please give them a nice round of applause. Thank you. We appreciate that leadership. This is the time where we'd like to stand with a moment of silence to recognize those callers and partners who are no longer with us, please. Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce the newly elected and re-elected members of our Board of Governors. Would the newly elected Board of Governors please come forward as I call your name? Skip Brown from Portland, Maine. Deborah Carroll Jones from Arlington, Texas. Elmer Sheffield, Tallahassee, Florida. Jerry Story, Crossville, Tennessee, and Mission, Texas. Would the board members who were re-elected to a 3-year term please come forward? Betsy Gata, North Brunswick, New Jersey. Mike Jacobs, Trenton, New Jersey. Tom Rudabot from Latona, Ohio. Norm Wilcox from Georgetown, Ontario, Canada. At this time, we'll take a swearing in, please. Oh, okay, not at this time. As I introduce the incumbent members of the board, I will ask them to stand in place and join in taking this oath. Clark Baker from Massachusetts. Calvin Campbell, Colorado. Larry Cole, Indiana. Tim Crawford, Canada. Larry Davenport, California. Bill Harrison, Maryland. Chuck Jaworski, Illinois. Jerry Justin, Texas and Canada. Tim Marinner, South Carolina. John Marshall, Virginia. Jim Mayo, New Hampshire. Tom Miller, Pennsylvania. Bob Poinier, Florida. Dana Schirmer, Kansas. John Sobalski, California. This year, one board member cannot be with us, Nasser Schukater from Texas. And one board member resigned, Lona Bloom from Denmark. This year, there are 4 board members retiring from the board. Patty Green, North Carolina. Robert Hurst, England. Vernon Jones, Texas. Dorn McBroom, Maryland. At this time, I'll ask Jerry Reed to please administer the oath of office.
If you would please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jim Marinner.
Accept this position of trust.
Accept this position of trust.
As a serious responsibility.
As a serious responsibility.
And pledge my services.
And pledge my services.
During my term.
During my term.
On the CALLERLAB Board of Governors.
On the CALLERLAB Board of Governors.
I will put the welfare of my fellow members.
I will put the welfare of my fellow members.
Before my personal feelings.
Before my personal feelings.
I will support the decisions of the majority.
I will support the decisions of the majority.
And abide. By the CALLERLAB Code of Ethics.
By the CALLERLAB Code of Ethics.
All this I pledge.
All this I pledge.
As my support.
As my support.
Of the ideals of CALLERLAB.
The ideals of CALLERLAB.
Congratulations, board members, and ladies and gentlemen, I present the Board of Governors.
Is that right? We just brought to our attention that we missed a first-time attendee, Torben from Denmark. Are you in the room, Torben? Great to have you here. Oh, okay. We'll check on that. Very good. Thank you. Glad to have you with us. This year, those members receiving appreciation awards will be honored during the banquet tonight. This year we offered a caller training seminar on Saturday and Sunday prior to the convention. This seminar was designed to provide information, guidance to callers who are now or would like to work with other callers to help them learn to call. 8 callers were registered for that seminar. Your executive committee will be discussing this seminar and making recommendations concerning future seminars to your Board of Governors. Please talk to one of the staff members to get more information. The following caller coaches volunteered their time to staff this very important seminar. And please call when I stand. Please stand when I call your name. I'm pretty good at transposing numbers too. Banker in me. Please hold your applause until I've read all these names. Special thank you, first of all, to the chairman for the seminar coordinators, Daryl Clendenin and Tony Oxenine, who is not able to be with us. Let's give them a round of applause for coordinating all that. Thank you, Daryl. The staff consisted also of Betsy Gata. Please stand. Yes. Paul Hensey, John Kaltenthaler, Tim Mariner, Kenny Reese, Ken Ritucci, and Jerry Story. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you. This year, the Committee for Community and Traditional Dance, Chairman Calvin Campbell, hosted another successful beginner dance party, leadership seminar, immediately prior to the convention. There were over 50 people at that seminar, including 17 staff members. We plan to include this seminar as part of the future conventions. Please talk to one of the staff members to get more information. Plan to attend next year. The following members staffed this very successful seminar, and please stand as I call your name and hold your applause. The following volunteered their time: Greg Anderson, Calvin and Judy Campbell, Ron Counts and Kit Galvin, Dave and Ruth Fullaway, Robin Alley Riggs, Dottie Welch, Clark Baker, Michelle McCartney, Stu and Kathy Shacklet, Kathy and Becky Jaworski, Walt Harvey, Otto Waterman, Jim Wass, and Chris Pinkham. Let's give them a nice hand. Thank you. We appreciate all that work. It's terrific. This year, there's a motion that will be presented and discussed and voted on during our annual business meeting on Wednesday. We encourage you to attend that meeting and voice your opinion and vote. There will be other items of interest to all of the members. Now, voting members receive the vote card, little salmon vote card, which must be brought to the meeting on Wednesday to be able to use to cast your vote. If you believe you should have received a vote card and did not, see Jerry, Dana, or Gail. Jerry will now provide more information about the process of this issue. Nice hand for Mr. Jerry Reed.
Thank you, Tim. Copies of the motion were in your convention package. If you did not get a copy, please see the registration desk. If you have any questions or concerns about the motion, see me or Dana or any of the board members, and they will either answer your question or send them to me. The procedures that we will follow Wednesday morning during the annual business meeting are these. The executive director will read the motion. The chairman will open the floor for discussion. Speakers, both pro and con, will be given opportunity to speak to the motion. This is your chance to express your views on the motion. The chairman will signal when the discussion ends. The vote will be taken, and as Tim said, you will need your vote card in order to vote. And as he said also, if the vote card was not in your packet and you believe you should have one, please see the registration desk. After the convention, the motion will be submitted to all voting members by a mail vote. Mail ballot. There must be a quorum of 1/3 of the returned ballots for the vote to be valid. A 2/3 majority of the returned ballots must vote to overturn the action that you will take Wednesday morning, or the action that you take will be binding on the membership. Let me read that again so you understand that. We will send the motion, the results of the motion that you take Wednesday morning to all voting members, and at least 1/3 of those ballots must be returned for that mail ballot to be valid. Additionally, 2/3 of those voting in that mail ballot must vote to overturn what you do here, or the decision that you make here will be binding on the membership. If you do have questions about that, please do see me, because that's an important issue, that what we do Wednesday morning will be binding unless it's overturned by the voting members. Thank you.
Richard Marold. This year, we have a very special treat, and it's very appropriate since we're here in Colorado Springs. It's the home territory of one of our very important forefathers, Pappy and Dorothy Shaw. We have with us this morning Richard Marold that will give us some perspective of what it was like to be the schoolmaster in Pappy's days. Envision this, please. I invite you to step back into the first half of the 20th century. It was a time when people traveled by railroad, listened to radio, shopped through the Sears catalog. They paid $3,000 to $6,000 for a good old house and applauded the baseball hits of Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb. The world danced to ragtime and became a jazz age. In the small town of Colorado Springs, students attending Cheyenne Mountain School between the years 1916 and 1951 did not have a leader. They had a Moses. Lloyd Shaw, educator, scholar, writer, square dance caller, athlete, naturalist, playwright, was a man with imaginative ideas combined with a bursting love of life. He considered his role as school principal to be that of a principal teacher. He taught biology, Shakespeare, and Colorado history. Endowed with a rich baritone voice, he read Dickens' Christmas Carol each December, and he made his play, The Littlest Wise Man, the school gift to the community, introduced thousands to the rhythms of Western square dancing, directed drama productions with gusto, lectured on a wide variety of subjects in the style that would make Churchill proud, and explained classical music and opera with the abandon of Luciano Pavarotti. By 1940, he was considered the foremost square dance caller in the United States. Please welcome Dr. Lloyd Shaw. Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you.
My friends, I am delighted to be here, and I'm delighted to be with people who love dancing. And secondly, I'm particularly pleased that we're meeting here in Colorado Springs, my hometown. And what I'd like to do is talk to you for a few minutes about some of the decisions and events that occurred in my life that I think influenced my role as a square dance caller. And then I'd like to have at least a few minutes, if you have questions, to answer them. I was born in 1890, and by the luck of the genetic dice, I was born in Colorado. And for some reason or other, the beauty of this region, these mountains, the magnificent geological formations, the rich fauna, the seasons of the year, fit my emotional apparatus, and I became very much a placed person. Even though I had the opportunity during my lifetime to travel around the country, to go to Europe, I was a Coloradoan. I was born here, I lived here, and I died here. And I lived very close to where we're meeting today in Cheyenne Canyon. In 1902, my parents moved from Denver here to Colorado Springs, and at the time, this was a small town, about 25,000 people, but it had changed rather radically in the previous 5 to 6 years because gold had been discovered on the southwest side of Pikes Peak, and that town of Cripple Creek and Victor and Anaconda and Goldfield had boomed into the greatest gold camp in the world, greater than the Transvaal in South Africa. And as a result, there were a number of millionaires living here in Colorado Springs, and the mining exchange building was built, and this became a business hub. I attended what was known as Colorado Springs Main High School, and early on, I was born at a time and raised when there's no electronic entertainment. If you wanted to see a play, you went to a theater and saw a play. If you wanted to hear music, you went to Colorado College, listened to an orchestra. Everything was live. And as a teenager, I began to understand my love for theater, and the Colorado Springs Opera was on Tejon Street. And I realized that when there was a matinee on a Saturday afternoon, I could go down to the Opera House around 10 or 11 in the morning, and they would always ask me to do some work. I would move chairs, move stage equipment, and so forth. And then about 30 minutes before the play or the opera or the orchestra began, I'd climb up into the rafters above the stage into a place that nobody else knew was there, and I'd watch the play or the orchestra or the opera. And I came to love that. Also, at the end of my sophomore year in high school, I was walking by a bookstore, and I noticed that they had a complete set of Shakespeare's works. And I decided I have to buy that. And so I went to work at the Broadmoor Casino within a mile and a half here, and I worked as a busboy that summer. And by the end of August, I had earned enough money to buy that entire set of Shakespeare's works. And it was one of the best things I ever did in my life. I loved Shakespeare. I later on taught it and was enthused about the theater. During my junior and senior year in high school, I also entered the state oratorical contest. And fortunately, my senior year, I went to Boulder and won that contest. Where we lived here in town, my mother and father, my two brothers, Ray and Glenn, and I lived on North Weber Street, which is essentially on the other end of town where we're meeting today. But I was close to Colorado College, and so that's where I went to college. And I continued my interest in theater, in English and biology. I had worked on the short line railroad that went to Cripple Creek. I was writing notes for a local newspaper, and they were eventually published in a book called Nature Notes of the Pikes Peak region. During the time that I was at Colorado College, I played football. But the most important thing that happened during that time was I met a beautiful young woman named Dorothy Stott. And we graduated in 1913, and in September of that year, Dorothy and I married, and that was probably the best decision I made in my life. She was a brilliant woman, a fine writer, a poet, and I think we complemented one another throughout our lives in terms of education, our love for dance, and so forth. I had a job teaching, and I taught at an academy called Cutler Academy my first year, and then 2 years at a local high school. And then in 1916, I heard that there was a position open at a small country school very close to where we're meeting today, only about 2 miles, called Cheyenne Mountain High School. So I applied for that job. And even though I was only 25 years old and had about 3 years' experience in teaching, I was hired. It fit me perfectly. It was in the country. It was small. We had 9 faculty members. And when I was hired as the principal and superintendent, I was not only had that position, but I had to teach English, biology, Colorado history, and coach football. Well, we had a faculty of 9 people, and it was not an overwhelming job to be the administrator of that school. but I spent the rest of my career there from 1916 to 1951. After about, in the early 20s, I became interested in English folk dancing. And I began to use the students at the school to practice these dances. We would meet in the gymnasium, and I realized that dancing brought out some of the best things possible in students. Let me preface this also by saying that I had a little bit of controversy about 2 years prior to this. I mentioned I had played football in both high school and in college, and when I went to Cheyenne School, I was the football coach. But after about 3 or 4 years, I began to question why football was important to an educational institution. So I went to the board, and I said, look, I played football, I've been coaching it, but I'll tell you this, I don't like the adulation that is given to the players. Secondly, I don't like the fact that the school is sponsoring a program that basically ignores, first of all, half the student body because anatomically they're not correct. And for the other half that are anatomically correct, they don't weigh enough. And so we're investing this money and equipment and time in a small group of people, and we're defining the school in terms of victory over other schools. That's not the purpose of education. Well, the board agreed with me. So we got rid of football, and we had no more football. But we had dancing. And everybody could dance. And I wanted to have a school where the activities that went on complemented what we did in the classroom. And whether we went on a ski trip, whether I took students on a camping trip in the spring or the fall, all that had to fit into what we were studying in biology or physics, to the study of Shakespeare. As I say, we began doing these English folk dancing, and I loved it. We were invited to go to the state fair. We were invited up to Denver to put on some shows. But gradually, I became more and more interested in Western square dancing. And I did the same thing. I simply had students coming. We practiced after school. I began teaching when the students got into the 8th grade. They took classes in square dancing. We were invited to the state fair in Pueblo. Then we were invited up to Central City. And by the early 1930s, our reputation was spreading. And I was spending a great deal of time learning how to be a good caller. And it took a lot of time. In the summer, I traveled around this state and in the West here trying to find out as much as possible about square dancing. And it wasn't easy. Not many people had written books. I ended up writing the Round Dance book. I also have one book called Cowboy Dances, and these outline my work in putting the dances together. Well, by the mid-1930s, we had a square dance team at the school. And we're talking again about a small school. Kindergarten to 12th grade might be 200 to 250 students. The senior class of the 4 grades in high school might have 20 to 25 students in each one. But I would have tryouts for the dance team. We'd select 9 boys and 9 girls. Always took an extra couple. And every fall, we would take a trip to the East Coast for 2 weeks. And every night we were in a different city, danced, and I felt like a Pied Piper going around the country celebrating this wonderful experience of square dancing. In the spring, we went to the West Coast. One summer, I was invited to Hollywood to be the caller for the movie Duel in the Sun with Gregory Peck and Jennifer Jones. It was an interesting experience, not necessarily in terms of the dancing that I had to call, but I remember being filmed for several hours, and we had other dancers and people there, and occasionally Gregory Peck and Jennifer Jones would come in, and I thought, my gosh, this is going to be a big part of this movie. Well, when I saw the movie, it took up at least 20 seconds. So I learned something there about making movies. I like the dancing also in terms of not just the team that we had at the school, but also I wanted it to be something all the students could participate in. So one of the things we did was every Wednesday night at Cheyenne School, I would go to the gymnasium and everyone could show up and dance. And people that were members of the community, parents, anyone could come there, and we all danced. And it was, again, something that fit my own inner emotional needs. I loved what it did for the students. I loved the fact that everybody could participate in it. And it gave the school a reputation that in some ways probably still exists today, even though they don't have a dance team today. But it was a chance to spread the word about square dancing. And then another spin-off from that was certainly by the late 1930s, I was conducting a summer workshop for 2 weeks in which people could come and do exactly what you're doing here, and that is learn and practice to be good callers. Eventually, by 1951, Dorothy and I had been at the school our whole career, and life was changing. The Second World War was over. There had been thousands of young men who had come to Camp Carson here and saw the beauty of this region, and when the war was over, they moved back. This area began to grow. The school district began to grow, and it was in some ways outpacing what I was able to do, and so I retired in 1951. But it was a wonderful experience for me, and I had a chance to be an educator, a scholar, a writer, a naturalist, and a person who loved dancing and could spread that around the country. Let me stop and welcome your questions or comments, or if somebody wants to demand equal time.
Yes, my name is Dave Sutter. I'm from Dubuque, Iowa. And as you were talking, I was thinking about comparisons of the dance back in your day compared with today. Today we have top music, top equipment, trained callers. Our big problem is recruitment. And I suspect that that's probably just the opposite of what you experienced in your days. Would you comment on that, please?
Sure. In terms of recruitment
and the equipment.
And the equipment. Well, one is most of the time, for instance, when I was at the school, and a lot of times when I was calling a dance, we didn't have the benefit of these microphones. I was blessed with a good voice, and I could project fairly well. I would say the other difference that I had in comparison to you is that I didn't have the competition of television. And as a result, to go out on a Wednesday night and go to the school and dance, that was enjoyable for everyone. In the summer, there's a place in Colorado Springs called Acacia Park. We would have dances there during the summer. So people did a lot more active participation in events rather than stay at home. And so I didn't have that competition. And it was something that everybody enjoyed, and I think that's one of the things that benefited me. Teach Johnson was my piano player, and she traveled with us. She was able to work out the music with me well, and so that's what worked for me in terms of music. Yes, sir.
Tell them about the $5 Ford Club or the glider.
Well, a number of the things we did at the school. In the 1930s, we had a $5 Ford Club, and that meant that you could spend up to $5 fixing up an old Ford. It meant it probably didn't have a body, or any covering on it. It had a frame and a motor on it. And so I would take the students and we'd go up in the hills, so forth, and race around. And one of the things I felt was important was that there's a certain amount of risk that students have to have if you're going to grow up. So one of the ways we did that was with the $5 Ford Club. I also conducted a rodeo every fall. I remember in 1933, a young man named John Love was a student at the school, and I told John, I said, "You're a sophomore, and I haven't seen you be doing anything. I want you to ride a bull in this rodeo." Well, he was very reluctant, but he rode a bull, and later on came back to see me. When he came back, he was governor of Colorado. And he told me that, he said, that broke the ice for me. I realized you have to take some risks. You have to make some moves that you don't know how they're going to turn out. And so we had the rodeo. I also, we purchased a glider one year. And this was again in the 1930s. And where Cheyenne School is located now was a mesa sloping down a couple miles. So we would haul the glider, put the glider on a truck, and take the truck up to the top of the mesa, and then hook a rope onto it. And one of the students would get into the glider, the truck would take off down the hill, and the glider would go up. Well, of course, today there would be 20 lawyers around ready to... But again, it was, you got to try different things. And although we only did the glider 1 year because a man came and said, "I want to buy that glider and I'm going to try and set a record." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, I'm going to take it up to the top of Pikes Peak and go off Pikes Peak and land down around Colorado Springs." Well, he bought the glider from us, took it up there, and he and the glider no longer exist. They crashed. But I think that was, it's the same. We took the students on skiing trips often. People today say, "Well, you must have gone to Aspen or Breckenridge or something like." No, we drove up Ute Pass. I'd take the bus up a ways, and I'd be watching the hillsides. If I saw a place with a lot of snow, we'd stop the bus. The kids would have to get off, and they climb up to the top of the hill and ski down, and they climb back up. I mean, they're not a wuss would have to use a tow. And at 12 o'clock, while we would all meet at the bus, and we'd have packed our lunches, have lunch, and then go back and ski another couple hours. So, I mean, that's a real, I guess it's sort of a Theodore Roosevelt approach to skiing. Where you got to be a manly person to do this. But the rodeo and the gliding, the participating in the dancing, all that was what I thought was part of an important education. Also, I had the Littlest Wise Man, a play that I had written that went on for years and still is produced in some places today. Any other questions?
I was wondering where the choreography come from. Would you consider yourself mostly a collector of choreography? Did you contribute to the choreography? Did your students contribute to the choreography?
I would say that most of the choreography I collected from others, and in both books I advertised for people to send in what they were doing with their different dances, and then I would give them credit. But I was, in terms, I would say, of my leadership style, I was a better director than I was a composer. That I was able to gather together what some other people had done, some of the traditions that had existed here in the West, and put them together and create the dances that were very popular. So, again, a better director than a composer.
My name is Stephen Cole. I'm from the metropolitan Seattle area in Washington. I was wondering about gender balance at your school. Did you have equal numbers of men and women? Did you have to adjust? Did you have more women than men? What was it like trying to recruit couples?
Okay. In terms of the students, we had a fairly equal balance. I remember, in the class of 47, there were 30 students, and it was 16 and 14, so it was pretty evenly balanced. In terms of recruitment, the students wanted to make the dance team. We had a first team that would go on the trips to the East Coast and the West Coast, and they were the best dancers at the school. But we also had a second team, and they would be composed mainly of freshmen and sophomores. And we would take trips to local areas. We'd go up to Cripple Creek for an evening and dance, or someone would ask us to come to Central City and dance. Those are trips that went around the state. But it was sort of like a junior varsity group, but they were learning the dances. And the other thing we would do is, if the weather was bad on a school day and we had lunchtime, it was raining or heavy snow, I would go immediately to the gymnasium, and students would come in and we'd have 15 to 20 minutes to dance. So dancing was going on all the time, and it was something that the students were proud of and wanted to participate in. I should say, not everyone. There were certainly parents who took their children out of my school because we didn't have a football team. There were those who said it's do-si-do or out you go. And there were probably some of the young men in particular who didn't see dancing as a high enough testosterone challenge. But no, I didn't have trouble recruiting students. Well, I know let me conclude with the real articulate person in our family was my wife, Dorothy, and she continued working with the National Square Dance Conventions and so forth for years after I moved on. And she said, and I leave you with these words, when one becomes part of a beautiful pattern, the pattern moves him as he does in it. Blood pressure drops, pulse settles down, digestion becomes serene. He is actually healed by a shared folk art that observes the laws of rhythm and of design. Thank you very much.
Richard Marold, a.k.a. Dr. Lloyd Pappy Shaw. Thank you.
I don't think we have time for that.
Okay.
But do invite them to attend committee meetings.
Oh, yeah, okay. In your packet, you have a pretty well-described bit of information about all the different committees and the meetings and things that are going on. I encourage you to please go over all that material, pick and choose what we can do. You'll notice that some of the items are being recorded, and if you can't attend that session, or a spouse or a partner can't attend something else, then we encourage you also to purchase the tapes that are made available. So we'll ask you to go ahead and look at that information and read up and decide which committees and which meetings and events you would like to be a part of. Closing remarks? First of all, before we go, the theme of the convention is tools for success. The fact that you all are here is you are one of those tools for our success, and you are the part of this success for this convention, and we appreciate each and every one of you being here in attendance, and we look forward to a great convention, and we hope that you enjoy your time here and enjoy the rest of this entire event. We'll pass this on to Jerry, if you'll give us some closing remarks too.
Thank you, Tim. I sure hope you enjoyed Dr. Pappy Shaw. That's the first time that I was able to meet him, and I was quite impressed. So we hope that you enjoyed that. Committee business is one of the main reasons that we come to a CALLERLAB convention. All committee chairmen have been provided a list of committee members. Committee members must be on a committee 30 days prior to a convention to vote on committee business. Committees cannot override a decision made by the committees previous to the convention. They can discuss it and vote on issues. Any votes taken at the convention are sent to the full committee for review and for vote. If you are interested in running for the board, please pick up a petition at the convention registration desk. You must be a full member, a minimum of 3 years. You must obtain 25 full member signatures. Nominees will be given a few minutes to campaign at the general meeting on Wednesday morning. This year we'll be voting for 9 board members. Petitions must be turned into the registration desk or mailed to the home office, and they must be in the home office by July 1st of this year. You will also need to submit a biographic resume and a photograph to the office by July 1st. Exhibitors are located right across on the other side of that doorway there. Please do support them. They're here for your support, and we ask that you do support the vendors. Remember, they will close at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening and will not reopen, so do pick up your purchases by then. As Tim has already mentioned also, all the interest sessions are taped by convention tapes, so it's very important that you use the microphone to get your questions or comments onto the tapes. We will have a remote mic in each room so we can bring the microphone to you. Be sure to see Scott Argo and order your audio before you leave. He has various formats rather than just the audio tapes. There's a committee sign-up sheet in your convention package. Please review all of the committees and do pick one that you would like to, or more. We invite you to join as many committees as you can support. We are always looking for people who will work on our committees. The committees are the meat of CALLERLAB. Almost all of the work that we do in CALLERLAB is done by committees. So we do need your support in that area. The critique sheets that you also had in your convention package are extremely important. The executive committee, each of the 5 members of the executive committee, and Dana and myself receive a copy of all of the critiques, and we do in fact read every one. We throw out those that we don't like, and then we read the other 2. No, seriously. We review all of the critiques, and we have made changes based on the critiques. So it's important that you do fill those out and give us your honest opinions. We will collect those at the general meeting on Wednesday, or you can turn them into the registration desk. Have you seen Jeff? Do you need to see Jeff? Okay. Corbin, guys. Corbin, if you would stand up, please. There's Corbin. He's kind of hard to pick out with his camouflage shirt. But if you'll notice, right outside the door of the vendors, there's a desk set up there. And Corbin, if you any of you subscribe to American Square Dance Magazine, you've seen Corbin's work and the choreographics that he puts in there, the cartoons and such. We've arranged for Corbin to be here for you this convention to draw caricatures. And Corbin is very good at that. There is no charge for the caricatures, so do stop in and see Corbin and have him put one together for you. The BOG informals are extremely important. This is your opportunity to speak directly to the board. So if you have ideas or complaints or compliments or any thoughts about what CALLERLAB is doing, about square dancing, any thoughts at all, please go to the BOG informals and voice your opinion. And those informals are reported to the board Wednesday afternoon. And believe me, the board does discuss those issues that are brought up during those board informals, and we have made changes in the past based on those comments. The youth committee has been changed, so if you're interested in attending the youth committee will now be 10:30 tomorrow morning in the El Paso room. So youth committee, Tuesday, tomorrow, 10:30. Whoa. In El Paso. The challenge committee, Ed Foote, are you here, Ed? If you would stand up, Ed. Ed Foote is, in fact, still the chairman of the challenge committee, and will be until the end of the convention, and then Barry Clasper will be taking over. And Francois Lamoureux, is the vice chairman of the Overseas Advisory Committee for Germany, and he will be the vice chairman through this committee, or through this convention. Which room? The boardroom? Third. Yeah. The BOG informals are on the third floor, so you'd have to take the elevator or take the stairs. I advise the elevator up to the third floor in the boardroom. We have several Birds of a Feather sessions scheduled this year again. Those are for special interest groups, so please take a look at your program and attend one of those Birds of a Feather sessions. Luncheon today will be the first of 6 meals that are in your convention package. Breakfast will be 7:30 to 9 on Tuesday and Wednesday. Remember that your badge is your meal ticket, and if you lose your badge, you probably won't be able to eat. So if your name is John Kaltenthaler, you might not be able to eat.
Mr. Chairman, I really wasn't prepared to start my diet at noon.
The devil made me do it. I just couldn't pass that opportunity. If you requested a special meal, a special diet meal, you should have a note in your convention package. If you requested one, or if you thought you requested one and you don't have a special meal ticket, see Gail, and we'll fix that up. Please bring those meal tickets to the banquet or to the meal, and the wait staff has been instructed to collect those tickets. Please do not tip up chairs at the banquet or the meals to save seats. If you want to sit with a group of people, please enter the banquet hall with your group. If you tip the chairs up, it becomes a very dangerous situation. First-time attendees, please see Larry Davenport, and right here is Larry Davenport. Right up at the front of the hall. Please see Larry Davenport concerning the dance tonight. All of the one-on-one collar coach sessions have been moved to Salon E right across the hall. So if you signed up for an individual collar coach session one-on-one right across the hall, they've all been moved to there. today and tomorrow. It's now time for the first of 4 beverage breaks included in your convention package, and the next sessions will begin at 10:45. We hope that you have an enjoyable, educational, and pleasant convention, and we hope that we feel sure that you will. Remember, your badge is your meal ticket for all convention meals. Please remember, no badge, no food, no exception. Have a great convention. We'll see you at noon. All right.
Marvelous.
Good.